And my next guest, who those of you who are Judicial Watch reporters and donors know this man very well, Chris Farrell. He is my brain behind everything I know about Judicial Watch.
That's very sweet of you.
I text to him constantly on all issues related to the scandals that happened in Washington, on everything related to the corruption in Washington, because he understands it so well and both knows the details and spends his time in the research and then can explain it well, which he can do so well. Let's just start on the topic that I was just discussing with Sheriff Clark on border security, and you've been to the border, which is why I wanted to ask you about it. And he was just talking about how it's got to be a priority. Though we aren't going to get an immigration reform this year, as an election year and a tough election year for Republicans. What can be done? What needs to be done? What have you seen?
The greatest problem is that we have no idea who's in the country. None.
Why are the numbers? I'll tell you, I'll say,
sure.
In the people I've interviewed in the last 2 days, I have got the most varied numbers on immigration. He just said 15. Someone yesterday said 30. 10, 15, 20. I'm glad you said that, because I don't say anything back, so I'm like, I'll use whoever I'm with.
These are the experts, right?
Right.
And that's because we have no idea who's in the country. People always forget that most of the people who are here unlawfully are visa overstays. Most of the people here unlawfully are visa overstays. So they came into the country, let's say to go to school, to go to some university somewhere, and then they just don't leave. Or they go to visit Uncle Harry or whatever, and then they don't leave.
How can they get a job?
Because there's an underground economy that's...
Underground, okay.
It's just a matter of people hope that nobody ever checks,
That's obviously the public needs to be educated on that, because I don't know that, most people don't, that it's not so much border crossing, that it is people we are legally allowing in and then they stay.
Yeah, that is the biggest number. Well, part of the problem is, we don't have an active or proactive entry-exit check. So we issue visas and people show up, but there's no hook. There's no, okay, where are you going, how long? There's no requirement for them to register. I know I lived in Germany and Belgium for 8 years, pretty much straight. And if you travel in Europe, at some places, when you check into the hotel, you have to turn over your passport, which is kind of freaky for Americans.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to hand it over.
But they do. They take your passport, and then at night, the local police come by, they take all the passports, they register everyone, and then they give them back to the hotel, and then you get your passport back in the morning. That is routine. France was doing that. That's the one that comes to mind immediately, because I experienced it.
It's terrifying as an American, but I have no problem with the foreigners happening to the foreigners, so they're not Americans.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't have a proactive means of welcome. We hope you have a blast. Spend your money. Have a good time here.
Yes, please. Yes.
But we need to know where you are and what you're doing. There's requirements on universities now to sort of affirmatively verify that whoever this person is come into the country and they're actually matriculated and they're taking classes, and part of that's tied to funding, of course, right?
Right.
So that's always a very effective way to get people's attention, is to tie things to funding. So the universities have an affirmative obligation to check on students being present. But let's say you just don't come back one semester, or you graduate. Well, no confessions. But that's just what happens, right? So that explains a whole bunch of people in the visa overstay world. Now, if you flip back over to the border, and you're thinking about and looking about illegal crossings, and that's kind of the stereotypical, a dozen people running through the desert kind of thing. Obviously, that's a huge problem. It's exacerbated by documentation that we obtained from the State Department, showing that in 2004, the State Department knew that there were two, what they referred to as Arab cells, operating in Juarez, Mexico, right across from El Paso.
Wow.
That they specialized in the movement of, again, the term that they used was Arab cells. The regional security officer in Juarez, the State Department guy responsible for the consulate there, he was going around buying newspaper ads in Chihuahuan newspapers, in particular trying to identify a guy by the name of Adnan al-Shukr Juma, who was the director of al-Qaeda operations for North America. He's a Broward County, Florida guy. That's where he was born. That's where he was raised.
He's American?
He's not.
Okay.
His parents came over, but he went to high school and junior college in Broward County. He's totally Americanized.
But is he radicalized?
He's now dead, which is more good news. But in the time period we're talking about, the State Department knew this guy was running around loose in Chihuahua, Mexico, in the state around near El Paso. And they were taking out display ads, saying, hey, anybody who has information, because they knew there's 2 Arab cells that specialize in moving guys across the border, and the head of Al-Qaeda North America was on the loose. So, and yet you will hear various authorities say, oh, no, there's no threat from the border, Mexico is fine. Sure, we have an illegal immigration problem, but there's no terrorism related to that. It's just a load of baloney. There's a very great, very real, documented, because we got the State Department records.
Right.
This is not my opinion. This is their documentation detailing it. This is pretty serious stuff, and now we're from 2004, we're now 13 plus, 14 years later. Do you think we're really any better?
No, of course not. Well, it's the threat of, we haven't heard about, we haven't talked about this, it hasn't been a topic lately, is a threat of terrorists, because we haven't, thank God, had any terrorist attacks.
Yeah,
but the radicalization in America and ISIS, the threat of ISIS is just as strong. Law enforcement's just been doing a really good job lately stopping it.
This is the deal where we have to be good all the time, and the bad guys only have to be good or lucky once.
Right.
But I'll remind our viewers that we did some reporting on an ISIS operational cell. This is now 2 years back, I guess, also in Juarez. It was uncovered because of a dispute between the Mexican Federal Police and the Mexican Army, who were conducting operations in an area of Juarez called the Napra. That's like the district of the city. 2 different Mexican sources told us, one federal police inspector, one Mexican Army field grade officer told us that they had uncovered this cell that was operational. When we reported that, people became hysterical, saying, oh, you're making things up, you're lying, it isn't true. Interestingly, the now disgraced leaker, Mr. Comey, went down to El Paso and said that our claims were nonsense. Made a point of it.
Wow.
Here's how bad it got.
We have to talk about this because this is what our viewers, I haven't been able to ask other guests because this is what Judicial Watch does so well. And we had these donors yesterday. Galix, what was their names? Galix? You guys remember? They were amazing. And it was so interesting for me here in Washington. It's hard to, I know that the Judicial Watch reporters are Galix are really strong. And my social media blows up when I'm working with Judicial Watch because people really support what you do because it's nonpartisan and it's just, we distrust the government and no one is against the law. And they came, so interesting to hear from them because they're from Michigan, right? And they were saying, at first you sort of hear like a lot of people who come here to CPAC, people are more educated on political issues.
Sure.
The Gallics were educated on the donor issues, which I learned a lot from them. It's going to change how I donate my money. And they were talking about how Judicial Watch is so transparent that just as your organizational philosophy is transparency for government, transparent about yourselves, transparent how you spend your money. They were saying you can pull up online and they donate because the organization does so much with what is given. And I've interviewed some of your lawyers,
right.
And these people are brilliant, and they do such hard work, and they do such good work, and there is no equivalent to Judicial Watch. On the left or the right, there's nobody out there who's just going, we are going to go through the government and make sure on either side that money goes where it's supposed to go, that laws are upheld no matter who you are, and the results that you get, the results daily after day after day. And also I'm talked about with who's forgetting her name, the lawyer who does
Ramona.
I was gonna say she's my height, so
the little person.
Short, right? She's my height. Ramona, I was talking to her yesterday about it. I said, because she wanted to talk about IRS, and I said we're gonna have to remind the viewers the issue. the IRS and the conservative groups because it was 5 years ago, and anything that happened 5 minutes ago, the American public forgets about. And what she points out is that Judicial Watch stays with things until it's finished. It's not like Law and Order.
Nope.
It's not resolved in a day.
It doesn't happen in 42 minutes.
Right.
Less
42
commercials.
minutes, right. Because she was like, but everybody knows about what the IRS did. I was like, actually, no, pretty much everyone's forgotten. They forgot what happened last week.
Yep.
I'm one of them. I was like, I actually said, who's Lois Lerner? I remember the name, but that's what happens. And what's so great about Judicial Watch is your lawyers, they have the patience of just Job.
Well,
they just go forever on these issues until they get it.
The tedious nature of the courts and how they operate. I mean, we don't control the court calendar, so part of it is just persistence. There's cases we've worked on. Tell me
some of the stuff recently, because I can't list it all. So stuff recently that's starting to, that you guys have exposed, that nobody else has exposed, that the mainstream media all use your information. They all, you guys.
Without attribution.
Without attribution. I always.
Not always. Not
I
always,
do.
But very
I'll
often.
tell people, every time you guys release a FOIA dump of documents, it's great. You guys give out the documents so the American public can read it. What are some of the things recently?
Well, I want to just back up a sec. We have the best membership in the world. We have the smartest, most tuned in, most attention to detail members. It's tremendous. And
it's a shame they're not all in Congress.
Yeah, that's true. If more would run for office.
Right.
But they're hugely informed. I mean, just very, very into what we do. And we're very grateful for them. The other thing I think that's really important is that all the stuff we do is document driven. And so, when we put out a press release or we have some sort of a panel discussion or whatever it is, it's all because it's rooted in, the foundation is in government records and documents that we've obtained, either through Freedom of Information Act or through our litigation. So if you want to disagree with us, that's fine. I mean, you can have a different sort of editorial point of view or political philosophy. But if you're going to say, no, what you're doing is wrong, we always have documents to back it up. So here, you read the document, you tell me what it means.
Okay, so for example, you released, what was it, a month or two ago, a bunch of new emails from Hillary Clinton because her assistant, Huma Abedin.
Not Uma Thurman.
That would be kind of more interesting. She's hot.
It would be a movie.
Yeah. Huma Abedin, who was married to Anthony Weiner, convicted sex offender, child sex offender, and he had her secure emails on a server, and you guys got those released.
We did. That's an interesting story. I think I also want to give credit to NYPD detectives and to FBI agents out of the U.S. District, or the Southern District of Manhattan, because those guys came across the Weiner emails, or the Huma Abedin emails, looking at the Weiner laptop, because of his little perverted thing. Right. And so when they found that, they said, whoa, we have indications, or we have reason to believe that there was pressure from Washington, from the FBI headquarters, to suppress that, to not bring up the Huma information on the Weiner laptop. They were not interested in that. And that goes back to some of these Strzok page text messages now that people have seen. And so it looked like, I mean, I can't say with certainty because I haven't seen the document yet, but it looked like Washington was saying, let's not go look at this later. Don't pay attention to it. And thankfully, there were NYPD detectives and FBI agents in Manhattan who were like, oh, no. We found it. We're reporting it. This is part of another investigation. So kudos to them. But those recovered emails, I mean, this just compounds an already horrible story. Hillary Clinton, although not convicted, in my personal estimation, based on my past professional life, I mean, she's a national security felon. It's beyond dispute. There are 22 top secret SCI emails that went across her server.
Right.
The fact that a lot of this information was backed up onto the Weiner laptop is because Huma didn't know how to manage her accounts too well. And she was excerpting information off of these classified cables. And so instead of reading an 8-page report that no one's going to read, she'd just extract like the 3 little nuggets, the gotta know stuff, and send it on to Hillary. And so that's the kind of stuff that was being
Judicial
taken.
Watch.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not. You are freed up because Tom Fitton here will continue this exact conversation.
I'm sure he will.
Thank you, Chris, for doing this.
Thank you, Emily. My pleasure.
Keep up the good work for all the Americans, for everyone. Chris Farrell, you guys know, you see him on Fox, you see him everywhere. Follow him. Oh, you stopped using Twitter.
I stopped all social media.
Whoa.
If you want to find me on social media, you go to Judicial Watch.
All right, you have to go to Judicial Watch. On Twitter and however you're watching this right now, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, to find Chris Farrell and all the fascinating things he does. If he disappears for a week or two, I mean, he's doing some really cool investigation. That's what I've since found out. And I always just want to follow along.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank
Good to see you again.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.